Hey everyone, welcome back to Watch and Carry. So today's video is going to be the first live demonstration of the 2X system. So if you don't know what the 2X system, it's that little battery pack that you can see underneath the Onewheel label there on the rear foot pad. And what it basically does is it extends the life or the range of the Onewheel, giving it probably around 12 to 17 miles. It improves the torque a little bit and will help prevent nosediving by delivering a more consistent battery delivery to the motor through 1, 2, and then a third battery which is placed inside the unit, which is I believe underneath that underneath the rear foot pad. So a total of 3 batteries rather than having one sharing the demand of the motor on the rider. So I just installed this. I put some tips on my YouTube page as well. This is Cooper, by the way, if you guys haven't seen him in other videos. We're out here playing fetch after work. So what they recommend after you install it is to plug it immediately into the wall until the charger turns green. That usually takes about an hour or so. Of course, that charging time is going to be longer than the typical 20 to 30 minutes because now you have not only the replacement battery pack underneath the rear foot pad, but now you have the 2 satellite battery packs, which are these outer ones that you have to charge as well. So again, after the charger turns to green, you're supposed to ride it to test it out to make sure it's okay. They recommend no more than 1 to 2 miles, and then immediately after this, we're going to put it back on the charger for another 24 to 48 hours. Cooper. 24 to 48 hours. So I'll probably do the full 48 hours. And then that second charge for the 48 hours is really just to balance the battery packs, to prolong the longevity of that battery pack. Anyways, I wanted to give you guys a I wanted to give you guys just a overview of what it looks like on the unit so far. Move over, baby. Okay, so you can see that even though it sits on the bottom, come here, baby, come here, come here, come here. You can see that even though it sits on the bottom of the Onewheel, that you still have lots, well, not lots, but you still have ground clearance between the ground and the battery pack. And so you're still utilizing that rear bumper for it to sit down. And then likewise, if you somehow nosedive, there's also ground clearance between that battery pack as well. I do have a pair of mini fangs from Landsurf also installed onto here, so these do not interfere at all with the installation of that either. Okay, so I'm going to try this out. If you want a reference for how my board rode before I installed this, I would recommend checking out my part 4 video of Onewheel Plus versus Pint, where I was actually in the same location and took a demo of it. So I'll ride this for a few straight runs up and down this track, kind of give you my comments on the acceleration, the speed, and then the braking. And I will be riding in Delirium for this ride. Okay, so let's go ahead and put the board down. I'm going to pause the video here. Okay, so here we go. We're about to do a couple runs here. Let me turn up the brightness a bit. That looks good. Okay. And I will raise my right hand when I notice the pushback, because apparently the 2X also kind of dials down the pushback. It doesn't eliminate it, but it kind of dials it down a little bit. So look for that right hand. Okay, so the last two, I hope that was in shot where you can see me just accelerating. I don't really notice a big change in acceleration. Top speed, it seems to be pretty much the same as it was stock. Again, I'm gonna have to open this up to really comment on it and take it on a wide open road. But I will say that the delivery of that acceleration, if that makes sense, it's a little bit more linear. So what I mean by that is the stock Onewheel Plus was by no means not smooth. But for this one, it just seems, I don't know, there's a more direct connection between me leaning and the amount of speed that I'm moving forward. So just a more linear feeling. Taking this uphill, I've still yet to do. I can't really do that here. They close the hill where I usually test this. So what I'm gonna do now is carvability. So you are adding a fair amount of weight. This is quite heavy to carry now on the Onewheel Plus. I would say anywhere from 6 to 10 pounds of weight being added. So this next video, I'm going to do some carving for you so you can see, comparing this to my Onewheel Pint versus Plus video, does it really affect my ability to carve and turn? And then we'll end with some final thoughts. Let's try to get that straight for you. There we go. All right. Okay, so we'll do some carving right now. Again, we're still in delirium. Yep, still feels good. You stretching? Okay, let's do some acceleration from a standstill here. Again, delirium again. Cooper? Go, baby. Cooper. Do one more acceleration here. Hey, sweetie. Say hi to the camera. Say hi to the camera. There. Can you say hi? No, you can't ride this one. I don't have a fender. You might suck in by the wheel. Okay, one more acceleration. Oh, he is, okay. My dog might be the biting one, so.
Your dog will beat him off.
He's a beautiful dog, your dog. Oh my gosh, he's so friendly. Can I keep both of them? You're not barking, that's amazing. Hey, buddy. Hi. Hi. Wake up. Good boy. Come here. Good boy. Wow. So Cooper, if you guys don't know, is pretty barky. He's a shelter dog, and he's very, very friendly, but very defensive, I think, of his home. So with any humans, he's a little nippy. We're training him off of that, but this is the first time I've seen him with a big dog. There was a big husky that came by, and Cooper was very cordial. Yeah, you can't pick a fight with that dog, right? He's too big. Okay, so we did acceleration, we did turning. Sorry, buddy, I've been ignoring you. Okay, so let's talk about final comments, and I'll put this one wheel up here so you guys can get a better look at it while I talk away. Okay. Thanks, sweetie. Where's the brightness on this? Okay, so I got cut off in my last video there. So I'm going to finish up with some comments about my initial impressions on the Two-X, and then talk a little bit about the installation of it that I had to go through. So, overall, I feel it's good. It feels, I really don't notice a big difference so far just doing these runs front and back. Cooper, can you get over here? Come here, baby. I don't really notice a big difference between the 2X and the stock battery, just in terms of going in a straight line. I'm going to put this thing, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, back on the charger to do the balancing. I will say the biggest difference, if any, at this point that I notice is the weight. It definitely is heavier to carry, you know, obviously by hand. So I think I'm definitely gonna have to invest in a one of those side handles, because it's just becoming too heavy to carry it by the front bumper. And I'm also a little bit worried of putting that much extra weight on the two very tiny screws that hold the front bumper to the frame. So a little bit of prevention, a little bit of comfort. I think I'm gonna have to get a better handle for this. In terms of performance, I feel like the power delivery, as I'd mentioned, is just a little bit more linear compared to the stock plus. I feel like my ability to lean forward and pull back is just a little bit more analog. It's just a little bit more connected to the board, if that makes any sense. Not that the stock was unpredictable, but this is just that much finely tuned, that much more finely tuned, I think. Speed, I would say maybe a bit. These last two runs, I noticed it to top off just a bit on this run here. But you know, the problem is when you're running in a straight line in a very thin, narrow piece of road, your perception of speed is going to vary, right? Because things are going to seem faster than if you were going at the same speed on a wide open road. And I don't have my odometer or speedometer in front of me because it's on my phone, which I'm using to record. So just the sensation, I feel it's just a little bit more faster. So let's talk about some other stuff. I wrote this stuff all down while I was installing last night. Tips and feedback from my installation process. So number one, use like a crate. So you've seen a lot of people get an empty crate, they put their one wheel on it, and that way the wheel is suspended, the board is horizontal. Makes it easy to work on, and it also saves your back. A lot of this work you're going to be standing up for, so it kind of elevates the one wheel a little bit. Number two, you can see on the top right there, I have a power plug cover. Now, if your power plug, if your charge plug cover, your XLR plug cover is not flush with the board, you know, make sure you take that off before yanking out the sensor pack underneath. I think that makes sense, but some of you might forget about that. Number three, label your hardware. So I had a white piece of blank paper, and every time I removed a fastener, I put it on the paper, I drew a box and pencil around that that fastener and I labeled where it came from on the board. So that way when it came to reinstalling the parts towards the end of Soren's video for the reinstallation, it was that much easier to just go to that part. And I would label it like corner of the top of the board or bottom corner of the bottom of the board. Anything you can do. Take lots of photos like Soren mentions, that also helps. Take photos of the wiring. You know, if you return this back to stock, that's also going to help as well. Number 4, running your stock battery down to 75%. So it was raining hard yesterday and I was just in the mood to install this kit, but my battery was at 100%. And so Soren recommends running your battery down to 75% because you're going to be putting the stock battery in storage, and that just helps with the longevity of the battery. So go to my video on how to do that at home. I basically clipped 2 rubber vice grips to the sensor pad while the board was suspended on my crate, and I just kind of ran it down in motion. I ran down the wheel while it was stationary till the battery went down to 75%. So that's a way to do it at home. Sealant. So if you go to the installation page on the 2X website, there is an optional section at the bottom that says weatherproofing your 2X system. So I also made another video on that. I would recommend you checking that out for the 2X and weatherproofing on my channel. But I would recommend using RTV silicone sealant. I did it to the bottom 2 satellite battery packs here. Each satellite pack is like a sandwich, and instead of like a sandwich, they kind of fold into each other, right? So between the 2 parts of the single satellite pack, there's a seam that moisture could potentially get into, plus it's located at the bottom of the board where all the moisture and debris are going to be. So I took that RTV sealant and I went around all those gaps, and then I also applied RTV sealant to the what did he call that part? Anyways, I applied it to the opening in the bottom of the board where all the wires feed into the battery. There's a big opening, or there's a big hole, and they try to seal up that hole as much as they can with wires and a strainer, but there's still going to be some gaps, so I just put my RTV sealant in there and I just kind of squeezed it in there like a tube of toothpaste. That kind of went everywhere, and then I cleaned up the excess. So that is a great weather resisting option, and it's cheap. You can buy it at your AutoZone store and pretty easy to apply. Cooper, come here. Come here, baby. Okay, number 6, white thread sealant. So again, I made another video on this. There's a section in there where you are reattaching the, I wish I remember the name. The gland cap and the gland screw. You have to put them back together in Soren's video. Just make sure you apply a thin film of thread tape, you know, like the stuff you use when you're installing a shower head, before putting that in. Let's see here. Reinstalling the wire retention clips. So that wire in the center of the wheel that you can see right now. Again, I made a video on this. I would recommend watching that video on how to more easily get those wire retention clips installed. Once you're done with the complete installation of the Onewheel, the first thing you're going to do is press the power button, and you should see the blue light come on, and then the blue light should fade. That's normal. Then you're going to go ahead and turn off the Onewheel. Then you're going to plug it into the wall charger, your stock wall charger, and it's simple. You plug your wall charger exactly in the same place as you would with a normal plus, right into that charge port on the top right. Come here, baby. Come here. Okay, you're going to leave it on the charger till the green light on the charger turns green. And then Soren says you can take it out for a test drive after that for no more than 1 to 2 miles, which is what we're doing today. That's what I covered in part 1 of this video. And then after that initial test drive, if everything looks good, put it back again on the charger and leave it on there for 24 to 48 hours. The website says the longer the better. So I'm going to leave it on for 48 hours. Tightening fasteners, just basic stuff. Just make sure you don't over tighten things. You know, when you're using tools, try to use tools that maybe don't have too much leverage, especially when you're getting towards the last end of screwing something in, because some of these parts are like hard plastic, it looks like, and I could see that cracking if that happens. The Onewheel app. So some people have said, what app do I use when I'm done installing this kit? How do I tell about battery life? So for the the plus with the 2X, you can still use the regular Onewheel app. You can still do your digital shaping, your custom shaping, all of that good stuff. Turn the lights on, turn it off, check your speedometer. The only thing that the basic Onewheel app will not be accurate for now that you have the 2X battery system is, of course, your battery level. I have not exhausted a full ride on this yet, so I will save that for a separate video on how to really tell the levels. But aside from the normal Onewheel app, you want to download the P Onewheel app. So P is in Paul, Onewheel app. And when you download that app, I'm still getting used to it, so you might have to go to others for better commentary on the app, but it tells you everything from the cell activity of each of the satellite packs and the main battery pack that you just installed with the 2X. And I think they just updated a feature on there where you can now have a traditional battery percent meter. So you know how like the typical Onewheel app, it'll tell you 20%, 10%, 95%. In the past with the P Onewheel app, what would happen is it would give you a volt rating, like 55 volts or 50.1 volts. And you just had to, through some research and talking with others, know what each of those volt numbers translated to in terms of battery percentage. I think in the past, like 55 volts was normal for 100%, and 40 or 45 volts was like completely empty. So a little bit difficult to tell your readings on the fly if you're not used to it. But now I think the app has an option where you can check and say, hey, don't tell me just the volts, I want a battery percentage meter. So that's a great thing to have as well. Last thing I'm going to end with is just some installation tips. So this is a pretty, as other people have mentioned, pretty in-depth installation. The parts are all included. There was nothing missing. I think the parts are well made, but a lot of your patience, I think, is going to be tested when it comes to reinstalling and adjusting the wires within the gland cap. The orientation of those wires makes a big difference, because if the wires go back into the main compartment unit for the battery in a disorganized fashion, then the new battery that you install from 2X will not sit flush, and then you can't close that compartment. And so it kind of becomes cumbersome, because you know it might take a long while to adjust those wires, and then you go through several other steps and then finally install the battery. The battery doesn't fit, and now you have to uninstall everything again, and then you have the chip that's in there for the battery, and that's very delicate. So it's just a very tense area to be working in, a very delicate area to be working in. It can be frustrating. So I would recommend take breaks. If you're getting frustrated doing this, that's fine. I mean, yesterday I was saying, you know what, I'm going to get this done, I'm going to get this done, I'm going to get this done. I didn't get it done. And it was that step, adjusting the wire orientation, that was tripping me up. And so I could tell I was getting really upset. I was like, why is this so difficult, you know, to orient these wires? The space is really small. The tolerances to get those wires in with the battery is really, really small. So you have to get it right. And Soren emphasizes that in the video. So just be patient. I took a break. I ended up just like sleeping early that night and then waking up today having a fresh set of eyes. So just be calm. Have your tools ready. Have a nice workbench. It's good if you can have things organized where you have your hardware on one side, you know, and then your paper for labeling your spare fasteners on one side, then your tools on the other. The more organized a workstation you have, the more mentally clear you are, and the less frustrated you're going to get, and probably the less mistakes you're going to make as a result of being a little bit more calm. Stick with it. Ask questions. Go to the 2X Facebook group if you have any frustrations, or you can email Soren. I'm sure he gets bombarded with so many messages, so just be patient with him getting back to you. He's usually very, very good, especially on Facebook. You can check him out being pretty responsive there. And that's about it. Again, this is not a real review. This is just a first impressions of it. I'm going to do a full ride with this and get back to you guys. But so far, it looks great. Oh yeah, with these rides, the acceleration felt good. I think it felt a little bit quicker, actually, with the 2X. The carvability that you saw actually felt really good. I was surprised. I thought that extra weight might have made it harder. I would dare to say the carving was just a bit easier with this 2X installed, which is kind of odd. And the only thing I can think about that is now there's a little bit more weight on the bottom. So now my center of gravity is a little bit lower, I guess. So it's a little bit easier to balance, and easier to balance means easier to initiate a turn. So yeah, I would say so. It was definitely a little bit easier to carve with the 2X. Fit and finish looks good. It's a good product, so I will get back to you guys on how things go. So that'll do it for today's video, guys. Thanks for sticking with it. If you have any comments or questions, put them down below, and I'll get back to you when I can. And as always, have fun, be safe, and I'll see you on the next one.